Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Hi, and welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. I am here today with Giuseppe, who has I didn't even know this was a job, and I've been in recruitment for over 20 years. So I kind of thought I had seen it all. So I'm fascinated to learn more. Giuseppe, what's your job title?
I am a franchise coach and consultant. So it's it's not a very popular people, and most people, including myself, have not actually heard that. And can mean a few different things, so it's a little bit confusing. So,
all right, so then let's clarify. In your instance, what does that mean? What do you do?
What we do is we help people figure out if business ownership is the right fit for them. We then explore the area of franchise ownership, and then we essentially not just look at franchises, but figure out what's most important via business characteristics, strengths, things the individual wants in their particular business, and then explore 2 or 3 franchise companies that they can potentially look in, where we also make the introduction. So we're kind of like a franchise matchmaker, if that kind of makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, because in my head, here's how franchising works.
Right.
This is probably really wrong, so I'm excited to get corrected. In my head, you go to restaurant and or shop and you think, oh my God, this place is amazing. I love this flavor of fried chicken. I want this in my face all the time. And then you see a sign that says, this is a franchise for franchise opportunities. And you're like, what? I can make my own fried chicken that tastes like this. I'm in. And then you contact them and they say, great, give us all your money. And you sign up, and then boom, you have a franchise. Like it, lump it, work it, don't. They're happy because they have their money and you get chicken for your face. That's my interpretation of how it works. It seems fraught with terrible strategies, etc. I feel like you have a better plan. So correct my interpretation, please.
I wouldn't correct it. I think that's a common way that, including myself, when I was in my 20s and before investing in my first franchise, I was looking at Subway because I had eaten there. The food was decent, was good. And I figured, okay, wow, that's the sexy thing right now. And I should own a Subway. So only until working with someone like myself, and the main reason I got into this was that they basically said, well, you can make as much money as you want doing something completely different and eat all the sandwiches you want. And I'm just like, wow, all right. So he basically said, let's figure out a business, forget about the widget or the service that is a fit for you. Where do you want to be located and the type of employees, the number of employees, all that kind of fun stuff, and be selective in what you want. And then we'll use that guide, that model that we created to explore other franchises. So not wrong your way of thinking. It's very common. We just have a better way of going about it, if that makes sense.
Sure. So it sounds like you were all ready to go give all of your money to Subway, and somehow along the line found somebody who was like, hey, this is a terrible plan. Was that a meeting that person? Was that a natural part of the giving your money to Subway process? Was that like somebody you happened to stumble upon, or how did that initial finding that person happen?
Right. So I never actually had a conversation with Subway. It was just my own research and talking to a few franchisees. So before contacting them, I was doing my own research online and came across a franchise consultant. We help you explore franchises, and by the way, there's no cost. And I said, well, all right, well, there's no cost. There's nothing for me to lose. So I had reached out to that person here in New Jersey, and they were able to assist me and open up kind of my world on franchising as to, it's not all about food. There's porta potties, there's dumpsters, there's employment services, there's eyelash extension franchises. Let's figure out what is a good fit for you. So that coach and consultant truly helped me out. And that's why, as I mentioned, I got into this business. So it's really fun. I enjoy it. We get to help a lot of people make one of the biggest financial decisions they'll ever make.
It is a huge financial decision. And it just it feels terrifying. Like, I think we all watch in our own world, right? Where like you see more and more things being built. Like there's a McDonald's every like half a
Yeah.
mile apart, it seems like. And all of those are franchises. And they can't all be doing equally well, right? Because like, let's be fair, there's the good McDonald's, and then there's like all of the ones we don't go to.
Mhm.
So when you're going through the process, like if you've gotten excited and decided you want to do a franchise, how much support do you get from the parent corp usually? And obviously I'm sure there's 1,000 versions of this, but how much support do you get from them usually in terms of making a good investment decision for your geography, et cetera?
Yeah. So there's 4,000 franchise companies, and to your point, not everyone is created. Yeah, there's a lot. Not everyone has been created the same. And you have closings of franchises, and you have brand new franchises being launched every year. So support wise, I think if I had to categorize, the better franchises have that support structure. And it's not them just telling you that we have the support structure. They have other franchisees that existing franchisees you can actually ask and say, hey, I was told X, Y, and Z about the investment, the earnings, the support. Can you validate? Can you confirm that this information is actually correct? So I see a trend with franchise companies to say, okay, let's focus on our franchise avatar. Our ideal franchisee is someone who's excellent at management. So we have a couple companies not a couple, there's numerous companies where they are really looking for strong managers given the number of employees. So that specific franchise offers turnkey marketing. So they handle all the marketing. So you're just kind of overseeing the marketing. And they even include a call center. So all those leads from the marketing now get called in, and the call center picks up the calls. In some cases, they'll close the sale. In other cases, they'll schedule the appointment. So they're offering you all this support because a lot of people have never done marketing on their own. They've worked for a company. This is their first business, and they're just in sales. All the marketing was done for them. So a lot of the companies will offer those services. And as far as support, there's onboarding support, video support that like video tutorials that you can access at any point. And typically you're assigned a coach. So anytime you have a question, not only do you have support, someone on the phone, but you have someone in the field that's able to assist as well.
Gotcha. See, all of this fascinating to me, honestly. So what is your business model? Like, how do you get paid? Do you get paid by the would-be investor, or do you get paid by the franchise? Is it, what's your model?
The franchise. So we're similar to a real estate agent. When you're going around with your realtor, the seller pays the real estate agent the fee, and we're exactly the same. So franchise companies hire us. There's no difference to the franchisee. If you go directly to Subway or use someone like myself, just for that example, it's exactly the same investment. It's just that the Subways of the world and all the other franchises are getting thousands and thousands of people inquiring about their franchise.
Sure.
Many cases it's sold out. They're not qualified financially. So franchise will utilize our services to really bring them qualified candidates that are a really good fit for their brands.
Okay. That's so interesting. Like I said, I had just the whole thing. I had no idea.
I didn't as well. So it's pretty cool.
That is amazing. So let's rewind and talk about 20 something Giuseppe, who's like, you know what I need in my life? I need to own a Subway. Like, what brings a human to that place in their 20s? In my 20s, I was just, let's just say that I had nothing nearly that pure on my mind.
Right.
I was not looking out for my personal financial or business best interest moving forward. I was doing a lot of other 20-something-year-old things too. So like, why have you always just been a business person? Do you come from that kind of a background? Like what brought you to that place so young?
Right. I wasn't the typical 20-year-old. I got involved in investments at a young age with my father, and just learning about investments. Not that we had all this extra money to invest, but just learning how the stock market works. And we owned an Italian restaurant, so I got exposed to business ownership starting in third or fourth grade, bussing tables, a couple hours here and there just to be involved and learn about the business. But liked it. A lot of work. It was the wrong business for me, given the nights, the weekends. It's a rough business. It was fun owning a restaurant, but it was tough. So I went the corporate route. I'm first generation Italian, first person to go to a college. And I said, let me explore that. It's the American dream, right? To go to great university, do really well, get a great job. And I did, but I hated it. I hated being a number. I had 15 managers above me. I had some great managers, but it's like when you screwed up, you heard it 15 times. And when you did well, maybe you got a pat on the back. So I didn't like it. It was a long commute. And I said, okay, long commute, miserable, making good money. So that was the positive. But we were about to start a family. And I said, I need to be home at a decent hour just to see our kids. I commuted quite a bit in the morning, and I got home, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I said, there's got to be a better way. So I looked at other jobs. That didn't pan out. Worked with a business coach. And by our second phone call, she said, you thrive with, or that book, I'm sure you've heard of it. What color is your parachute? She goes, the color of your parachute is systems in place. You thrive with a system. You're not a creative person. You just want the system, and you will, run that system harder than anyone else. You'll follow it, you'll grow it. And as long as you're not reinventing the actual system, you're actually just using the system. And that was a game changer. That opened me up to business ownership. I'm like, this is too much. I don't want to create everything from scratch. And that's when I came across franchising. And from there, I'm like, all right, I'm definitely in the right area. Now I have to figure out which franchise to get into. So so that's kind of just the motivation. It was a motivation of being able to see my kids and just not being miserable. And
I have to ask, at some point, have you done the Subway franchise? Like, have you gone back and been like, no, now the numbers add up right, and like sandwiches are for me?
Never. Just as I mentioned, I've been a customer, and that type for me, given the large investment and given the quality of life and the returns, I just said I ended up investing in something that was a fraction of the cost that did really well. So I never went back because it wasn't aligned to the lifestyle I wanted.
Sure. So it seems to me there's, you said thousands of franchise opportunities out there. They can't all be great.
Right.
And it seems to me personally that at the worst end of the spectrum, that it's kind of a glorified MLM, right? That it's like, it's MLM for like at a business level of risk. So, oh yeah, you bring everybody in and, refer a friend and get these benefits and that sort of thing. Is there truth to that? Am I a crazy person for feeling that way? Like, from what I have seen, like I said, ones that give zero support, you see like places going in almost next door to each other that offer very similar services that clearly there was no sort of area SWOT analysis done about whether or not this was a good geographic location for that. And to me, that smacks, like I said, of that MLM kind of feel. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's similar to MLM. It's, you're referred. So you have all these different layers. With franchising, you have your corporate office, and then you have your franchisees, right? So there's two levels. The franchisor, that's the official term, and the franchisee. And the franchisee is not owning any part of Subway. They're owning their own Subway franchise. They have their legal entity, but they're owning that system. So essentially what you're doing is, versus just say a startup sandwich shop, is that you're buying the system in place. You're buying all the connections with vendors. So they have a proven system of and ingredients,
immediate brand recognition,
right?
All of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have all that. It's definitely, you'll see, my logo, my book, Franchise Freedom. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not biased towards franchising. I love it, but it's definitely not the right fit for a lot of people, the people that are looking to kind of set things up from the very beginning. But to your point, many franchise companies, they have a great system, but once they hit that 100 unit level, 100 location or territory level, that's when things sometimes fall apart because they don't have the systems in place to support their franchisees. So they have a great product that sells itself, but then they don't have the support. So when you're investing in a franchise, unlike MLM or a license plan, things like that, you're getting three things. You're getting support, ongoing support, I should say. You're getting to use the brand and their whole training system that you're paying a one-time fee, a franchise fee, and then an ongoing royalty. So that's kind of the definition of a franchise. If any parts are missing, such as the ongoing support or paying this ongoing royalty, then it becomes more of a license. That was the way it was explained to me years ago from a good friend of mine. So to your point, not every franchise is built the same in the support structure. So when you're doing your own due diligence, you want to find out, what am I getting up front? What's the ongoing support look like? And not only that, after I get past the beginning of the due diligence with the franchisor, I'm going to go back to the franchisees and maybe visit a few locations if it's brick and mortar, or utilize their service if it's like a mosquito spraying or painting service, and ask them and say, hey, are you happy? Are you getting the support? The worst thing you could do is get this crazy amount of training and support in the front end, and then it drops off. That's more of a license where you're checking in, you pay much less, but you're not really paying a hefty amount, like a percentage amount. Typically it's a fixed amount you're paying with a license. So if you're getting into a franchise, you're doing it for the ongoing support. So you just want to confirm that you're going to be getting that support and talking to each of the franchisees. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
No, it did. It's really interesting. And obviously, like, I am rapidly learning in this conversation how very little I actually understood about franchises going in. So I am increasingly fascinated. Yeah. So you said, like, it's not for everyone. So talk to me about that. Like, who are the people that really, this is like franchisee is not for you?
Yeah. So a franchise is a business, right? It's a proven business model. So startup or franchise, these are all businesses. They all carry risk, and they're one of the many vehicles that you can use in order to get you your financial and your time freedom. So, and there's investments, there's day trade, if you want to call that an investment. There's so many different vehicles. So the person that's making their leap from corporate America into owning a business and starting their first business, they want the value. It's basically the value proposition of a system built for you versus you building the system from scratch. So someone that just wants a system where they can maybe be up and running in 30 to 40 days, a franchise is going to be a great fit. In other cases where the person wants to design everything from the system, the product, the service, have their name up on the sign, create everything from A to Z, that's going to be someone that may not be the best fit for a franchise. I ask those questions, but I also listen to what the person's looking for. So we've had people that were gung ho about franchises, and just to go back to the Subway example, and they're like, yeah, and then when we own our franchise, we want to add this to the menu, we want to do that to the menu, and I go, well, hold on a second. You're going to be following the system in their menu, although the $5 footlong was created by a Subway franchisee. It's a fun little fact, but
was the Chick-fil-A sauce.
I didn't know that, the Chick-fil-A sauce. Wow. Which they're selling, I heard, at stores now. So I heard there was a shortage.
Yeah.
my kids are really excited. Although I haven't seen it at the stores, but we probably have to buy it online.
We haven't found it in the stores yet either. I know theoretically it exists. We have a little cache that we keep of extra packets from whenever we get it.
You got to take it,
kids, right? Yeah, the kids love it.
Yeah, we blame it on the kids. It's not the parents, it's the kids. So
totally. My husband will put that shit on anything. Giuseppe, anything. I think like it's only a matter of time till I find him dipping an Oreo and that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think I found a recipe online. So if I can't find it, I'm going to experiment making it one of these days.
There's lies, damn lies, and online recipes. That's what I'm going to say about that. Giuseppe. Right. But yeah, so I think that's really, so what I'm hearing is that people who think that this is going to be like, Smith and Sons, but also with the branding of Subway, are the people that probably should have waited. one of the things that I have heard from people is, oh, I'm thinking about opening this franchise as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
It does not sound, listening to you talk about this, that franchising is a side hustle. It sounds like it needs to be your primary focus. Is that an accurate portrayal, or is there some gray in there depending on what the business is?
Actually, it can absolutely be a side hustle.
Okay.
So the misconception, I think, with franchising is that I have a lot of money, I have a general manager. Any business can be a side hustle, or I can do it on the side. And that's actually not the case. That's actually a myth. And the reason is the franchising world. Obviously, we've experienced COVID. We've gone through a lot, and a lot of these systems got tested, right? So for someone coming in, you can always ask, well, how did the business do during COVID? Did you grow? Did units close? What happened? How did you support the franchisees? So this was a blessing for a new person looking to buy that franchise. So, but as far as keeping a job and running a side franchise, there are certain franchises that do allow that. So there are franchises that are built for what we call semi-absentee, 10 to 20 hours a week. Others will say, no, we are looking for an owner operator full time, at least for the first, just say 6 months, 6 to 12 months. Once it's up and running, then you maybe hire a general manager. But they've noticed through trends and franchisees, they kind of have an ideal franchisee and an ideal franchise avatar, for lack of a better phrase, but they know who does well.
Well, like I know, so Chick-fil-A is a good example. Our local Chick-fil-A is owned by a guy that lives in my neighborhood. Super nice guy, really active in the community, etc. But man, I see him at Chick-fil-A as much as I see him at the local pool because it is very much that he's there. And he has said that like that is very much their kind of expectation, is that this is not something that you do on the side. No, I know that apparently after a certain level of performance and certain amount of time, then you can add more than one location, but I'm sure it's all very complicated. Suffice to say, he's opening a second location, for which I'm excited because, again, if I'm going to give my chicken money to someone, I would rather give it to my very nice neighbor. But yeah, so I think that's really interesting. So on that note, you mentioned COVID. So let's talk about COVID. We have heard over and over again how completely awful COVID was for small businesses. What happened to franchisees? Did they, in your experience, because obviously you know a lot more of them than I do, since I know like one. So what happened for franchisees and during COVID?
Yeah. So, depending on the industry they were in, obviously things shut down. So a lot of retail had closed down. And so a lot of the franchisees that I speak with had to close down temporarily. They worked on PPP loans and all that in the process. That was all pretty new to everyone. And many of them have opened up, have reopened. The certain industries that actually did well and are continuing to do really well have been home services. People were stuck at home. Some people are never going back to the office. I know friends of ours that you included. So they're staying home. So they're spending more in the home through either paying a franchise company to build a home office. They're noticing, oh, I got cracks in the ceiling. I need painting. So they're paying for painting service. They're using their yards more and paying for mosquito spraying services. So a lot of services actually did well, or franchises did well, given, what the underlying business was. Obviously, brick and mortar took a hit. Some of them temporary closed. Many of them are reopening, and they're finding out that, okay, what did the franchisor do to help me out? And some franchises said, okay, the gym is closed, a physical gym, but we can offer a paid service where it's online, and we're going to go over and beyond, as far as not just offering them one type of training online. We're going to open it up to everything, because you're still paying the fee. So although the physical location was closed, they were still able to offer certain services. In other cases, such as business coaching and expense reduction types of franchises, they're thriving as well, because a lot of companies are now trying to pivot how they do business. Maybe they're trying to close down their location. They're trying to do everything virtually. So they're utilizing coaches. They're trying to cut their expenses. And those types of businesses, these are B2B service businesses, are doing extremely well because they are assisting all these businesses try to make it to the, get to the next level. But obviously it's not something any of us would ever want to go through again. But you did see a big shakeout of which were the franchise companies that took a step back and said, we're going to support the hell out of all our franchisees. There was one in particular that said, our mission right now is not for a single one to permanently close. Every employee covered X amount of franchisees. They spoke with the landlord to negotiate. They worked with them. They sold gift cards on their behalf. They went virtual. They did everything they can to support their franchisees. And now that we're coming, it's coming in waves. Obviously, it's the numbers are coming up again, and we can't obviously control any of that. But people that are looking to open up future locations are finding great deals with landlords because there is a lot of availability, whether it's office space, retail space, and things like that. So not a great thing, but we've saw the franchise companies that really stepped up, and that's the story. The first question to ask is, how did you fare during COVID, and what did you do for your franchisees? Put them on the spot, find out if they didn't do anything. Maybe that's your way of saying, okay, off to the next franchise to explore.
So I am fascinated by something that you just kind of casually threw into that there are business coaching franchises.
Right.
I don't know what to say about that. I have a business coach. I am also a career coach myself, but it feels like that is such a personal knowledge and personal credentialing kind of area. It's hard for me to imagine how you would franchise that. And now I'm just trying to picture my business coach as a franchise, and that would be hilarious because I'm not sure that Michael would franchise well. But yeah. So how does for services like that are focused on some really specific expertise,
right?
What does that look like for people? Do they have to have that expertise themselves somehow? Do they have accrediting programs through them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's business coaching, not consulting. So consulting, you get into specific areas. So with coaching, there are some major coaches out there that they utilize a lot of their training. And so what they do is there's the same training that goes on to all the franchisees. They offer marketing support, training, and things like that. So from the coach's standpoint, the major benefit is the franchise system. So in some cases where you're getting into coaching someone, because it is very personable. So each franchisee is going to have their own style. They're going to have their methodology of things that they're going to cover, but they have that back office support. They're going to personalize their training, but they're able to utilize all the franchisees in their system across the United States so that if it is something in financial service and that's not it's my background, but maybe not someone else's background, they can utilize another franchisee and they kind of work together in assisting maybe that person if it's something with specifically financial advisors, CFPs, and things like that. So they can work together and kind of utilize and borrow each other's expertise, and then they come up with an agreement as how they're going to split the fees. So it is very personal. As far as the type of person, they are looking for people that are coachable. So you are a coach, but they want people that are coachable and that can follow a system. But you also have to have a personality that can go out and knock on doors, not be an introvert, but be an extrovert. So, and go out and go to networking events, go to businesses, sell your service. There's a lot of networking involved. So you may have the pure skill set of being an awesome business coach, but if you don't have the skill set of going out with the marketing of the company to go out and get business, it may not be a good fit for you. So that's one of the things that I assist, because I have some great analytical people. We have another franchise that just does expense reduction for small business, very analytical, CFPs, financial all day long, can help you with that, but they don't have the drive to go out and get business, right? So they don't have the networking, the B2B. They don't like that aspect. They may not be a good fit for that particular business. So that goes back to the key characteristics of what you're looking for, what your sales ability, or comfort level is in sales before even exploring that type of business.
It's interesting. So the Edward Jones model, is that technically a franchise then? Are they technically employees? I'm not sure. I get the impression it's kind of a somewhere in the gray between the two, that they have to do exactly what you're talking about, like the hustles on them to bring in clients, etc. They get some referrals from the back office, but mostly it's down to them to network and drive that there's some training to help them do a better job. There's the sort of centralized tools, but that's kind of it. And I know that it's very restrictive around how they can advertise, what they can put where, etc. Is that just because that's a really clear sort of national one that we've all kind of engaged with? Is that a franchise model, or is that where you're talking about that that's actually something different?
That's something different from my understanding. Okay. We have an Edward Jones right here in our backyard, and it's actually the model is actually very similar to Merrill Lynch or UBS. The only difference is they don't have branches. They don't have branches with 20 or 50 financial advisors. They put them in affluent neighborhoods. That person, there's one or two people, and that is it. That is your market. There's no one else in your town except for that one, or it's usually an advisor and an assistant, small office, and that's it. So there's no real big investment. Many cases they don't charge anything. It's full support, and whatever commissions are generated, you get a percentage. So franchise would be big investment on front, ongoing training, and ongoing royalty. This is a little bit different. This is they essentially handle all aspects for you. You're just getting a fraction of the commission, but there's no real expense up front aside from your time, basically.
It's just more of a commission only role. Okay. So you said earlier that that everybody hears franchise and thinks food and clothes, and then you said that there's like dozens of other. So what are the sleepy franchise opportunities that are really great things to look at that people just hadn't thought of, that when they come into your office and they're talking to you about it, they're like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And you're like, the returns are amazing. What are those?
I like franchises that they handle the marketing and they include call centers. So, essentially you never miss a lead, because that's the main reason. You get the lead. That's the hardest part of it, but no one's there to answer the phone. And most people, including myself, I don't know about you, but if I get the voicemail for a business and I'm looking for mosquito spraying, they don't pick up. I just may go to the next. So they're taking that off your plate and actually picking up the phone for you. So I love things such as, going back to coaching. I think that's great. Something as simple as mosquito spraying. It's depending on where you live.
You've used that example like 4 times already. Yeah, obviously keen on the mosquitoes.
It's a lifestyle business depending on where you live. So I live in New Jersey. The season's only about 7 or 8 months. So people that I've helped personally in the state have invested in this type of business, and they could take 4 months off a year because there's no need to spray in the winters here. In New Jersey.
That's just showing off. In Texas, they're a year-round situation. Now, the good news
I'm complaining in the winter.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for you, it would be 12 months a year, but there's what other businesses have you? Handyman service businesses. I cannot find. It is very difficult to find a handyman. So we have handyman services that have hooked up with some of the larger, warehouses, or not warehouses.
Big box stores.
Kind of like the big box, like the Home Depots of the world and things like that, where they work together. Obviously, I'm the type of person, I go to Home Depot, buy something, screw up the job worse than it was prior. Now I'm paying double for someone to fix it. So I'm the perfect customer. But I know it's very hard to find a handyman. So there are handyman services. They come in hourly rate. They fix whatever the heck you need. They even have programs where they come in for 2-3 hours every month and just hit the list, the to-do list.
Clear the honeydew.
Yeah, the honey to-do list.
There you go.
That's that. And man, there's so many different options. I really like that. There are options. Aquatic safety. So you're in Texas. Depending on where you are in Texas, I'm right on the coast. I'm about a mile from the shore. And there are so many people every year that come to New Jersey and there are so many drownings because they are not near an ocean. They've never swam in an ocean. Maybe they're near a lake or a pond or a pool.
Never heard of
So
an undertow. Never. Yeah. And then you add
riptide, yeah,
alcohol
rip
to
current.
that. And yeah.
Well, that's the one we can't. Alcohol tolerance is something else.
Not that anybody has ever got drunk on the Jersey Shore. Obviously,
no,
no,
absolutely not.
no.
And let's not bring up the show either. So, but aquatic safety, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do if you fall off a boat, a rip current, a rip tide, whatever it is, and they talk about that. So their mission is this specific franchise saving lives, right? They're helping your family, preventing drownings, and showing you what to do in a similar circumstance and things like that. So it's things that you would never think about. We have another franchise that is around. It's in the martial arts space, but really it's around getting kids off screens. It's around building self-confidence, anti-bullying. When I ask someone, do you want to get your kids off their screen? 99% of the time they say, absolutely. I can't get my children away from their tablets. So they work on that, and the end product to make it fun happens to be in martial arts. So there are just tons and tons of options. And I don't say that to get people overwhelmed. This is just a kind of a,
no, that's
what
so
is out
cool,
there,
because
right?
I definitely was like, franchise equals food or like clothing goods
Right.
store. So I am genuinely,
And it's
now
normal.
as you're talking about it, like I can absolutely think about like, ABC Pest Control is a huge national brand, but they are a franchise. And so like every local one is different, car dealerships, but again, that's a sales thing. So I think that I am fascinated, genuinely. So we've talked about who is a terrible person for franchises. And you mentioned that people think that you have to have like bags and bags of money to get involved. What is genuinely, if somebody is listening to you and they're like, I could totally spray for mosquitoes 3 months of the year in New Jersey and then take the rest of the year off. That sounds amazing. What is how much money do you need to have liquid coming in? And then what is the kind of overall investment that you're looking at from it to be in a good position from a franchise perspective?
Right. Okay. So we covered the ideal person is someone that follows systems. Then we look at the investment side, and I put everyone in touch with our funding partners to explore all their options, because depending if you're going to leave your job and have no income or do it on the side, two different things.
Mm-hmm.
You do it on the side as a side hustle, your investment's going to be a little greater. You may have a general manager or have to hire someone to kind of replace you. But that may open up other funding options. If you leave your job, have no income, obviously that you're going to have some less options there. So general parameters are to, first off, get all your finances together. You may be able to, depending on if you have if you could cover your monthly expense and have 6 to 12 months of living expense aside. So liquidity wise, if you can cover your monthly expense, assuming you're doing this full time, maybe $20,000, $30,000. That's just a rough range. Depends on your credit. Depends on the type of business. Is an SBA loan
on your lifestyle? Yeah.
Lifestyle, right? I mean, so you want to have something to put down on the franchise, and then you can take a loan out for the rest, depending if you qualify. Our the top two ways, of funding have been home equity lines of credit, with the real estate market just surging, and people's price of their homes just increasing every day. So taking the equity out. And the second one has, and probably this is the top one, is a rollover from your retirement plan. So a lot of people, when I came from the investment world, we always said, never touch your retirement, because I didn't realize there were options. And to find out, you can utilize a previous employer. So if it's your current employer and you're putting money in there, you can't use that. But if you rolled over money from a previous employer, or if you plan on leaving that employer, you can use that money. You can use it to pay invest in the franchise, buy equipment, pay your staff, even pay yourself a salary. And now you're using your own money, having full control of it, and not having to worry about making a loan payment every month. So a very popular way. Our funding partners offer a free consultation just to give you your options. And keep in mind, they give you all your options, and some of those options they do not even offer such as a home equity line where you would have to go to your bank or mortgage company, you only pay a fee if you decide to move forward with any of the products. So if it's a retirement rollover, you pay them the fee, they disclose that ahead of time, and you move forward and you're good to go. 3-4 weeks and you're fully funded.
So what percentage of the franchisees work, like in your experience? Because you hear scary numbers about, 70% of small businesses don't make it past year 3 or that sort of thing. You've been doing this for a goodly while now. Your experience for franchisees, like what percentage of them last?
I honestly don't even have a number for that. I don't know if there is a stat. What I will say,
just like with just off, best guess from the clients you've worked with.
I mean, we've had some great success. I think the success is due to, number one, investing in the right match for you. And I think the recipe for failure and why the numbers are kind of all over the place are someone either did it on their own or just bought the franchise because they loved the product or service and had nothing and knew nothing about how the inner workings of the franchise. And I've seen these are the top 2 reasons for failure are people buying a franchise and not following the system. So the people I work with, we spend months together. The first month, it usually takes 2 to 3, 4 weeks before we make introductions. Typically that sweet spot is 2 or 3 weeks before we make any introduction to any franchise, because I need to learn about you. When someone asks me, what's the hot franchise? I go, buy Entrepreneur Magazine and it'll list you the hot franchise, and it'll change next month and the following month. I go, Michelle and I buy the same franchise. You're super successful and I fail completely. Well, that franchise maybe wasn't aligned with what I was looking for as far as a lifestyle. So there's plenty of options out there, investment wise, semi-absentee, full-time, in the beauty space, fitness, you name it. The biggest thing is just stopping your research, I think, is the best advice I can give to everyone. Think internally what you want your life to look like, what your ideal business looks like. And then from there, and I can help you, go through this entire process. From there, then you figure out the businesses, as opposed to, let me look at all these companies that sound somewhat interesting. A golfing franchise sounds great. I love golfing, but that has nothing to do with golfing. This is retail. You're going to be stocking shelves and dealing with high turnover, open 7 days a week, holidays, weekends.
Black Friday, all the rest. Yeah.
You're going to be there. You're going to be open. It's not, I'm taking off the day after Thanksgiving. No, your store is open. You may even be open on Thanksgiving as well. So really think about what you want your life to look like. And in many cases, if you just want time and financial freedom to be home for all the soccer games, as it was for me, it almost didn't matter. And some people may disagree, but it almost doesn't matter what business you're in if it offers me the lifestyle that I want. My passion is time. I don't want to be working 100 hours a week. I want to be home with my family. I'm able to work from home now, which is a big benefit. So, figuring out what it looks like and being selective, thinking inside the box, not outside. Create all your list of wants, check them off, and then stick to that. Don't change for the franchise. Really stick to your guns. I think your chances of being successful greatly increase. So sorry I couldn't give you the number.
No, that's fine. I'm just sitting here. I'm actually just thinking to myself, you have effectively completely ruled me out from ever being able to do a franchise.
That's it. And that's fine.
Thinking inside the box, following somebody else's rules. None of those things describe me even a little bit. So
and you know what? And that
is good self-awareness.
Yes. And that's exactly it. So that is my job, because even if I say you're a good fit for the franchise, you still have to meet with the franchise companies. Sure. And it's a two-way interview. They'll be asking you a lot of the similar
I'm pretty questions. Good at interviews at this point, Giuseppe. I can fake a lot of things.
Yes, you have. Friend. Yes. but that's what I tell everyone. Yeah. I mean, I'm here to help. If I'm going to just sell you on a franchise, the franchise company is going to come back and say, you know what? I don't think they're a good fit. And these are the reasons why. So when people ask me, what's your success rate? I always say, and I don't say this to brag, I always say 100%. And they go, well, 100% of your franchisees are successful. I said, no, that's not the business I'm in. I'm not in the business. I'm not supporting the franchise. That's not my role. My role is matching you, letting you know if you should stay as an employee, do the startup, and if it is a startup, we always have connections and people we can refer you to, or if it is a franchise. So that's our role. If you go in and decide to take 20 vacations your first year, not listen to the franchisor, that's on you. I can't control that, but our job is simply working with you, learning about you to help you find that franchise. So
I do think that's really an interesting point because, again, very different, recruiter encouraging people to stay working for the man in corporate world. One of the things that I see a lot is people have in their head a picture of what this job, whatever, is going to be. And no matter how many times you say to them, this is what reality is, this is what the expectation is, if you don't find the right words to be able to get past that picture, there's no for me, that's really tricky. So for example, because I think that was a little esoteric in description. So to bring that down, a lot of times, especially when people make vertical moves into a strategic position, especially if it's remote, which right now obviously is very common, and they hear things like, oh, we have uncapped PTO. In their head, that means like, oh, wow, I'm gonna sleep till 9, roll out of bed, take a meeting, go walk my dog, have a lunch, etc. And they, no matter how many times you explain, no, the expectation is here around your availability, around what you're working, etc. If they have this picture in their head, you can only lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink.
Right.
And for me as a recruiter, and it sounds like part of your job as well, is to help figure out who is living in that delusional space and is going to therefore not listen and not be successful, no matter how many times we say to them, this is not that thing that you have decided that it is. It's really hard. I know some of the things that I do to kind of get through that. How do you work around that to make sure that you're getting through that mental picture and helping to actually paint the reality?
Yeah, so we tell everyone you have to come in with a blank slate. You have to be open. Are you coachable? Are you just set?
Everybody says they're coachable, Giuseppe. I've never met anybody who was like, I take instruction poorly. Even especially people who take instruction poorly, will tell you at length all about how very coachable they are.
Right. No, absolutely. So I think the trick is you have to do both, right? So actions speak louder than words. So
yeah.
You set the expectation up front, which is what I do. And I have you do certain things like, okay, we had a call, I think mutually, keeping in mind, there's no fee for our service. I'm going to offer you all my knowledge, all my coaching, but all you have to do is just be honest with me. We will assist you. I need you to fill out a form, a questionnaire if you're married, with your spouse, your partner, anyone else that's involved in this business. Takes 20 minutes. I even tell you how long it takes. I send the form 5 minutes after the call. Once you send this form back, we will set up that second call. The reason for the form is it gives me a little bit of additional information. Some of the questions you have to think a little bit longer about. People are gung-ho. I have a friend of mine, and I'm not going to name his name, but if he's listening, reach out to me. He texts me twice. We set everything up. He has yet to send the form back. It's been 3 weeks. I'm not following. I'm not chasing anyone. That shows to me that you're not engaged. I check to make sure you got the form, but if you haven't sent it back, that to me is actions speak louder than words. Maybe you just have a little bit too much on your plate, but we do give homework, and that homework is expected to be returned. And we're not talking about hours of homework, but doing a little research, giving our conversation a little bit of thought, working on a list of questions to ask the franchisor. So we're looking for people that are engaged. And I use the 5 whys. And when someone says, I just want a Subway franchise, why? Well, just because I want it, that's not good enough. I'm going to ask you why. Well, why is it? People have to eat every day. Okay, great. So you're looking for a business that's in high demand. What else? And I'm going to ask you a lot of whys. And I'm not a what do you call it? A franchise portal where you say restaurants, 100,000 investment. What do you got? I'm going to find out, because in many cases, you're interested in food, but really you're saying I want something that's high in demand. Your investment's 100,000. That's not going to be enough for anything on the retail side. Let's explore the service types of businesses. So I do a lot of exploring, a lot of questions, a lot of whys, and people that just are kicking tires, kind of in the very beginning. And that's fine. Some people just aren't ready. We send out a free book, a webinar, they get our monthly email, and they can always re-engage at a later date. But those are some things. So it's a combination of what they say, and then, actions speak louder than the words, having them fill out those forms.
Notoriously, free services, people value proportionately based on what they pay, right? And I know from personal experience that when I offer my services for free, inevitably, no matter how kind of a offer it seemed at the time, the level of respect that those services get from that person is never the same as the level of respect they get the exact same service, the exact same advice from somebody who's paying me $170 an hour to give it to them. How do you deal with that? Because all of your service is free. So I would think that you would have that issue sort of compounded a lot. How do you not just want to slap them all, Giuseppe? Because I would.
Yeah, I set the expectation up front, and I know the red flags. So in many cases, I try to work with a certain number of people so I can really engage with them and focus on them and coach them and assist them whenever they need assistance. So I know from the very beginning, we have the first call. Sometimes I'm not certain, they're not certain. So we agree to a second call after getting our form back. And I look for engagement. I look for responses in email. I look for that, make sure that form is returned. I look at their financials. In many cases, they're engaged, they're gung ho, they're ready to go. But I've dealt with people that they didn't have enough they wanted to leave their job, but didn't have enough for their living expense. They didn't have enough of a nest egg. So I'll just say, at this point in time, we'll continue with the call. I'm going to educate you as much as possible, but we're going to have to kind of hit the brakes here and say, you don't have the funds. Even after speaking with the funding partners, they put together a plan and say you need to go from 10,000 in savings to 50. At that point, maybe we re-engage. So then maybe that's 6-12 months later. Maybe I've talked to people 2-3 years later, which is fine. But I will stay in touch with you. You'll get my emails. You'll get alerted on my podcast. But you can email me anytime. Other people, their time frame is years in the future. That doesn't work at franchising. So I can only help you to the point where after our second call, we create a model, what your ideal business looks like, and they want to explore. I go, it's a waste of time to explore franchise companies, because it's like buying a house. You find the house, you tell the homeowner, I'll pay the asking price. Great. But I'll buy it in a year or two when I'm ready. It doesn't work that way. So same with the franchise. A franchise is going to have to guarantee you a territory.
The needle's going to move
right
1,000 times. Yeah.
So you'll just say, instead of exploring that franchise, let's stop at the research phase, which is typically call 2. And then when they are ready, typically they have a 90 to 120 day outlook of when they actually will buy that franchise. Then we'll look to see which franchises have availability as far as territory and things like that. So those are different ways. And I'm always here to help, but they'll learn a lot from the shows that we send out, from the notes, from the book. We're going to hopefully write a new book here in the next year or so. So we'll send that out automatically, so they have and are armed with all that information. So they are empowered to make that decision. And I always say, call me in 6 months. Let's re-engage and have a follow-up. So, I don't blow anyone off. I follow up, and things change, and maybe financially it didn't change, but now they have a partner. So now that partner is going to be silent, handling the financials. So now we have a case or a reason to move forward. So.
Okay. That is, it sounds like you've definitely got it down to sides. You said you're a systems guy. I'm believing it more and more as we talk, that you have a system for everything and you follow the system.
We try. Yeah. Not perfect. We're always trying to improve. So, but we try to make things as simple as possible and help as many people as possible. It's just me. So how do I multiply myself? That's why I wrote the book and did the podcast. So when someone has a funding question, prior to that first meeting, I could just send them the show, and they have all their
There you go.
education they need on funding. So it's kind of cool.
So when people turn around to you and they're like, well, you know a lot about this. How much do you make, Giuseppe? How do you answer that question?
None of your business.
A lot of none, yeah. Okay.
Never been asked.
Okay.
Yeah, never been asked. And that's just like anything else. I would never ask. So yeah, I've never been asked. But if someone did ask me, I would just say, we are compensated typically a percentage of the franchise fee. And that's as far as we get. But we don't get into details there.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we are out of time, but I have learned so much. So I really appreciate it. What have we not talked about that you wanted to make sure to cover?
I think we covered just about everything. Obviously, the conversations I have with everyone are tailored specifically for how we can assist.
Sure.
So I think a good resource. So if you go to the website, everything is there. So if you notice the initials right in the back here, GG, because Giuseppe Grammatico is difficult to spell. So it's GG, the franchise guide, GUIDE.com. You have a free book. Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. Free book download. You can download the book or you can purchase on Amazon. There's the podcast. We have about 63 shows on various topics. And if you are not a reader and prefer webinars, we have a webinar that's similar to the book, talks about the pros and cons to a job, the risks involved in a job, the risks involved in a business. So it's not biased in any way, but it's a full kind of, when people say there's a lot of risk in business ownership, I go, there's a lot of risk in as we've seen in having a job. Absolutely. Lots of risks. So we talk about, what those risks are. And so that you essentially have the best information available to make an informed decision.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was amazing. We'll have all of the links to all of that in the show notes for this as well, so people can easily get hold of you. I'm really interested to watch the webinar myself and see how I feel, because I talk all the time about risk in having a job. Obviously, that's literally my job, is to talk about that. So I am intrigued to see what you highlighted and what I feel like you missed. Don't worry, I will send you notes on that.
I'll just, if you send me notes, I'll have you redo my webinar. So I'm always open. I'm always seriously, I'm always open to suggestions. So I'm always looking to improve and add additional information. So.
Well, I'm super excited about that. So I will check that out, and other people should too. Thank you so much for your time today, Giuseppe.
Thanks,
I really
Michelle.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It was awesome. Had a great time. Hopefully I didn't talk too much. So
no, you were great. That was perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Take care.
You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.